Light at the end of the tunnel. Have you ever experienced a tunnel time, a dark time when you wondered, where is God? Is he interested in me? Is there even a God? So we all go through those times. When our kids were children, when they were small, and we used to go on a road trip by car, sometimes we had to go through a long tunnel. And to make it a little less scary for them, we used to play a tunnel game. So we'd say, it's going to be night, everybody, brush your teeth, say your prayers, jump into bed. And it's night. And then everyone would close their eyes and cuddle up, and we would get some loud snores. And then as the tunnel was coming to an end, we would say, it's going to be morning, wake up, brush your teeth again, and good morning. In today's gospel, we see Jesus preparing his apostles for a dark tunnel, a time that he knew would be very scary, very confusing, a time when they would wonder, is Jesus really God? Does he have any power? And some days before, Jesus had told his disciples very clearly, I'm going to suffer a lot and I'm going to be killed. And at that time, Peter spoke for them all by saying, no, Lord, no such thing must happen to you. So let's read what happened soon after. A reading from the Gospel of St. Matthew. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became bright as light. Suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah, talking with him. Then Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will set up 3 tents here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them. And a voice from the cloud said, This is my Son, the Beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and were overcome with fear. But Jesus came and touched them and saying, Get up and do not be afraid. And when they raised their eyes, they saw no one except Jesus himself, alone. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus ordered them, Tell no one about the vision until after the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. The word of the Lord. So now let's find out if we can together understand this exciting event. And then we'll find out what has God been saying to us personally through this event. So first we'll take the who's, the people in the drama. I have a few questions. Whom did Jesus take with him up the mountain? Peter, James, and John. These were the 3 apostles chosen for a special role as leaders. He took them for certain special occasions. Now, who appeared and talked with Jesus? Do you remember? Moses and Elijah. Now, what's the significance of Moses and Elijah? Moses represented the law and Elijah the prophets. So they were, in fact, representing the whole history of Israel, the whole Old Testament. Now, who else was present, but in a not very clear way? Through the cloud and through the voice, the Holy Spirit and the Father. This story is full of 3s, 3 witnesses, 3 people talking together, and the Holy Trinity. Now we look at when. When did this event take place? Just roughly. Towards the end of Jesus's life. So a few chapters down, we begin with the passion and death of Jesus. So Jesus was preparing them for his death. Where did this event happen? We know that on a high mountain. Scholars say it could be Mount Hermon or Mount Tabor. Now, why do you think God chose a high mountain for this exciting drama? We can't say for sure, we don't know God's mind, but a mountain has been a place where you spend time with God, where you can be alone with God, where you can meet God. And St. Luke says that Jesus took these disciples up to pray, and that Jesus himself was praying. And we know that both Moses and Elijah also met God on a high mountain. We'll talk about this mountain later. Now we go to the what. What happened? What first happened once they reached the mountain? Jesus was transfigured. And what exactly do they say in the gospel? Can you fill in these blanks? His face shone like the sun. The artist hasn't been able to show that over here. Something beyond our understanding or beyond explaining to someone else. And his clothes became white as light, says St. Matthew. Now, what do you think made the disciples realize when they saw all this, Jesus being transfigured? They must have realized that Jesus was really God, because we spoke before about light, no, and the glory of God. All the shining and light are sign of a glorious God. The church tells us that, like Jesus, we too will one day have glorious bodies. So this event is like a foretaste of what is going to happen to us, that we too will have new bodies, the resurrection of the dead. Okay, what happened next? Moses and Elijah appeared and they talked to Jesus. Do you know what they talked about? It's told to us by St. Luke, not in this gospel. Do you remember? They talked about Jesus' death, which was going to happen in Jerusalem. And what do you think this made the disciples realize when they heard these Old Testament figures talking to Jesus about his death? They realized that Jesus was going to die. Remember what happened a few days earlier? And Peter said, no, you mustn't die, Jesus, you mustn't suffer. But now they must have sort of realized, okay, this is part of God's plan. Hundreds of years ago already this had been planned, and this had to happen. Now, after this, Peter offered to do something without thinking. What did he offer to do? To build 3 tents, put up 3 tents, one for Elijah, one for Moses, and one for Jesus. Now, why do you think he wanted to do that? He just wanted to hold on to this wonderful heavenly experience. Sometimes it happens to us where we have a really good experience and we want to stay there. I want to stay at this retreat house, or I want to stay at this holiday. I don't want to go back. And what did Jesus say? Did he agree? No, he said, no, we have to go back. We've got to go through the dark time. We've got to face the challenges. We've got to do our work. Okay, so now something awesome, even more awesome happened, which made them fall down in fear. Now, Peter had no more suggestions, because a bright cloud came and covered them, and a voice came out of the cloud. Do you remember what the voice said? It said, "This is my son, the beloved, With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. So again, Peter, James, and John received a very strong, clear message. Jesus is God's Son. And this would help them later to face the terrible events which were soon coming. Recently, I came across this short story of a survivor in the Turkey earthquake. This little 5-year-old was rescued from a wreckage 112 hours after the quake. And a journalist asked this little boy, "Didn't you feel hungry when you were inside?" And the child just smiled and he answered in Turkish, "Every once in a while, someone dressed in white came and gave me water and fed me." We hear of many of these little stories, both in the Ukraine war and even in Turkey and Syria. They may not come into the news. God is with us always, as he promised himself. But sometimes we find it hard to believe. Sometimes we find it hard to trust that he is in control, that he is doing something good even in the bad times. You may ask, okay, this boy got out, but what about the 50,000 who didn't survive? And what would God tell us? They too are not out of God's reach, but Jesus conquered death and made the way to heaven. That's what his passion and death and resurrection were all about. And in one moment, they would be in God's love and arms, loving arms, new life, much better than the life here on earth. Jesus wants to prepare us too for the difficult moments of life. And actually, every day, he invites you and me up the mountain of prayer to be alone with him. It's not very easy to leave everything and to become quiet, to get all the distractions out of our minds. It is like climbing a high mountain, requires effort. But if we are ready and we come and are quiet with him, that is when God is able to give us hope, to make us strong, to remember that there is light at the end of the tunnel and there is life after death. Heaven is awaiting all of us who trust. Let's spend some time quietly in God's presence. Allow the Holy Spirit to surround you like a cloud. Enter that cloud. Jesus is there beside you. As you look at him, listen to the Father's voice as he speaks and tells you, "This is my Son, my beloved one." Listen to him. Believe in him. Even when things seem to be going wrong, remember, I am God. I am present. I love you and I await you in heaven. Don't ever lose hope. So bye and God bless you.